Adventurers, fun seekers, people travelling to work, out and about on steep and narrow roads set in spectacular scenery. Driving on tracks that demand absolutely everything, roads that are definitely not for the faint-hearted, lonely coasts, jagged cliffs and heavenly islands on the other side of the world. Anyone with the nerve to tackle the extreme roads in New Zealand, Scotland and Australia will search in vain for directions or passing places. What they will find, though, is a surge of adrenaline. The world's only sand highway, a spectacular, close-to-nature experience in Australia. The road through an abandoned gold mining area, wrested from the rock by thousands of Chinese mine workers. This is a single-track road. There was no room for two lanes. But it's not really single-track. Some come in search of adventure, wealth and fortune. For others, the main thing is to have fun, driving on extreme roads. New Zealand, a remote island country in the South Pacific and the last place to be settled by humankind. With its stunning nature and roads that offer a special sense of adventure, New Zealand has always held a mystical attraction for Europeans. Jan-Erik Winkelmann is a design artist and photographer. On his travels overseas, he always has a piano with him. He's prepared to put up with a great deal in order to play the piano in some of the most remote places on Earth. This time, he's come to a deserted canyon north of Queenstown on New Zealand's South Island.
Skipper's Canyon is a fascinating gorge. You can already see from Arthur's Point when you're heading for Queenstown. Skipper's Canyon has a certain appeal because travelling by car with a piano on a road like this is quite risky.
A look out of the window shows just why it's risky. A yawning chasm on the right and steep cliffs on the left. But Jan-Erik accepts the risks in his search for relaxation and inspiration. And as a photographer, he's always on the lookout for good motifs. At one time, gold prospectors were part of the scene here. The precious metal was first found in the Shotover River in 1863. Thousands came hoping to get rich quick. The names of rock formations here, like Devil's Elbow and Hell's Gate, indicate the kind of thoughts that went through the heads of prospectors back then. Today, it's mainly those in search of adventure who head for Skipper's Canyon. For 25 years now, 56-year-old Dennis Collum has been driving tourists along this road in anything that has wheels and an engine.
I've taken a lot of people in here over the years, and we've had people who panic and then insist that we take them straight out. This is at the start. And we've had people lying on the floor crying. And you've got to turn around. You might have a vehicle with 7 people in it and 5 of them are fine, and then now you've got some lady or someone, generally it's a lady, who's terrified, sitting on the floor crying, and you've got to then work out how to get, we've got to get her out, but we've still got to run the tour.
With his fleet of jeeps, dirt bikes and quads, Dennis drives tourists from all over the world. He's been up and down this road a good 2,000 times and has experienced a great deal.
In 1990, I was bringing a dirt bike tour up here, and I thought I'd bring these 4 Japanese guys up, all about 60, on their motorbikes. And normally I park up against this rock face here, but they were reasonably nervous, so I parked further back so they could get off their bikes easy. When I brought them up here to show them this view, they got on their hands and knees and had to crawl to the edge to have a look over. They were a little bit scared about standing up too close to the edge.
Anyone who really wants to experience the beauty of the canyon is best advised to leave the driving to professionals. The warning sign at the start of the historic section of the Skipper's Canyon Road is designed to deter tourists from heading for the old gold prospector settlement in their own vehicles. That's because unskilled drivers get themselves and others into difficulties time and again. The beauty of the mountain panorama masks the true face of the rocky coast all too easily. Only the first few kilometres seem harmless. Then it quickly becomes clear which pitfalls and challenges the steep, narrow road has in store. Since the road is not paved, it suffers from the forces of nature like rain, snow and landslides. Motorists are warned of this, but nothing more. It's a case of knowing where the risky areas are and keeping an eye out for them, because the road is rarely repaired. For Dennis, who often travels the length of the canyon road, the beauties of nature here tend to take second place. He drives the road throughout the year and knows when the problems start for him.
The problem is people, and we see it every summer, you'll see tourists try and come in here. The problem being is not this piece of the road I'm on right at the moment. The problem is where you meet them in a really narrow piece. You know, they have the inability to reverse off. Already scared shitless as far as, they're already scared driving it, looking for a place to turn. We can't close it off to the public because it is an open road, but the reality is people without off-road experience, without driving on really narrow, steep roads should not come in for their own safety.
A professional always drives on the extreme edge of the road, never in the middle.
See, here you go straight away. That's exactly what happens. And he's actually given me enough room, but I have to watch my roof rack here. This is probably the whole thing that you wanted to see. How's that look, all right? We're coming in to see Benji as well. All right, so I'll just sneak past you. Cheers, mate. So that's the difference right there. And also this rock is overhanging up here on the left. So if you get too close, you take out the top of your vehicle or knock the roof rack off. Have a look over here again. There you go. There's another one for you. And he's reversing with the trailer for me. So that's the road, see, and you've just, without even planning it, you've got two examples. So this is the difference between whether you've got a tourist in a car who can go backwards or, and this is the whole problem. When the road's busy, you don't need people who can't drive on it properly. Cheers, mate. Thanks for that. I didn't think you needed to reverse out for me. Good on you. Catch you. See ya.
Dennis drives adventurers, nature lovers and danger seekers from all over the world through this enthralling landscape. When two Irishmen discovered gold in the river through the canyon in November 1862, it sparked off a gold rush. The precious metal lured thousands of mine workers, traders and soldiers of fortune to the area. They called on the government to construct a road so that horse-drawn wagons could transport equipment and material across the Shotover River. Back then, small walls were built with natural stones so the horses couldn't see the steep drop. Before then, many horses had panicked and plunged into the chasm, taking their wagons and drivers with them. The little huts that can be seen from the road are remnants of the gold rush. They're where the workers who wrested the road from the rock used to live. At one time it's said more than 9,000 Chinese laboured here. Today, the huts stand empty.
Most of these huts in the outback, you can use them and just shut the door, so that way if people are in trouble in the mountains, they can use the hut, so they're never locked. If you're in danger, you can go in there and light a fire and spend the night and get rescued.
And anyone unfamiliar with the area can quickly get into difficulties. Not only is the road itself perilous, light and shade can also play a tricky role.
Especially in winter when the sun is quite low in the sky and you're driving into it, you might only see an oncoming vehicle very late. You can't turn around, so you've just got to handle the situation.
Jan Erik feels drawn to this now deserted region time and again. He's aware of the risks and knows how you need to drive here. This is a difficult stretch. Approach it too fast and you'll end up in a ditch. After a heavy downpour, the road is soft and muddy. Professionals advise driving on the crest of the slushy ruts, because once you've slipped into the groove, it's hard to get out. The vehicle bottoms out and can no longer be steered.
When I drive over these muddy areas and start to slide, I really notice it. Certainly, if I've got a piano in the car. I have to take great care in negotiating sections like this. The first major problem is stopping. That might be because there is no room at the side of the road or because there is someone behind you. Being a photographer, I usually let anyone behind me go past, because that gives me more time to focus on my motif.
And Jan Erik finds spectacular motifs everywhere here. Light, shade, rock and ice present a delightful interlude of colours. Dennis, too, knows all about the dangers this can present.
You can see the frost sitting here, but when it thaws, but also when it freezes, it just develops sheet ice. There's always water running down the road. You see that there on the... Okay, well then, when we get enough thawing, then that will start to spread across the road. Then the whole road will become a sheet of ice, and you can't muck around on it.
Today, tourists and adventurers are mainly impressed by the canyon's jagged cliffs, its wild beauty and remoteness, and its exciting nature. But in the early 20th century, it was the gold in the Shotover River that exerted an almost magical pull on huge numbers of people.
This river that we're going to follow, the Shotover River, there's been more gold taken out of the Shotover River per mile than any other river in the world. This was the richest river in the world by far for its size.
Today, there is hardly any precious metal to be found in the river. Only rarely do dauntless prospectors stray to the Shotover. Most of those who come here do so in search of adventure on the road. Dennis tells us that when it rains, the porous rock in the canyon becomes saturated. Together with sand and scree, after hefty downpours in winter, rockfalls and landslides sweep down, carrying anything on the road with them. That is why you're not allowed to stop here. A trip with Dennis on the Skipper's Canyon Road is always full of excitement. It's a helter-skelter ride, so different from the regulated stop-and-go of city traffic. Often you don't know whether to hold your breath or just enjoy the ride and the view. While down below, tourists are enjoying a jet boat ride on the Shotover, Dennis crosses the river on the Skipper's Bridge. It's at this point that most tourists become fairly quiet. While some enjoy the view, others feel queasy. The doors can't be opened because the daring bridge construction is too narrow. Often the planks are covered in a sheet of ice. Passengers' nerves are really on edge, but looking down into the gorge is an unforgettable experience. In summer, the local residents who, like Dennis, live from the leisure industry, have to share the road with a few bold tourists, some of whom drive themselves here for bungee jumping or rafting. Now, in winter, this is a lonely place, but even at this time of the year, photo designer Jan Erik has the courage to come here with a piano in his car. He's on his own, but he hasn't come unprepared.
In winter especially, you can hit some icy patches and some dodgy places where the road surface has suffered. But if you've got a vehicle with four-wheel drive, you can feel confident that you're going to get through safely.
The Skipper's Canyon Road is demanding, even extreme. Anyone planning to drive it on their own should perhaps give it a second thought.
It's a bit of a fun road, really. It's what makes the adventure. It's not for everyone, but if you're brave enough, you know, it's good fun if you like off-roading.
The Skipper's Canyon Road ends on a farmer's land. He's a nice guy, Dennis says. I sometimes call in to see him, but when he's got tourists on board, Dennis turns straight round here because hardly anyone wants to drive back through this deserted gold diggers region at night on one of the most extreme roads in the world. The landscape of the Scottish Highlands in northwestern Europe is wild and spectacular, but the routes through it are often lonely and full of hazards, like the Applecross Road, which links the Applecross Peninsula with the village of Loch Carron. Basically, a single-track road, but one that can be driven in both directions. It's notorious and dangerous. You never know what's behind the next bend. The road is lined by steep cliffs and crossed at night by deer. And, as is typical for the Scottish Highlands, the weather is changeable. The Scots themselves know all about the dangers.
I think I might prefer the snow to the fog. You can be driving very carefully, taking your time, but you're never sure what's going to, come along in the opposite direction. But no, I don't like the fog at all.
The Applecross Road is the only route far and wide, so anyone living and working here is dependent on it.
Especially with the narrow road, and if it's misty, people who drive in the mist and the rain with no lights on, nightmare.
But some drivers come here especially to face the challenge the road poses.
There's a section of it called the Devil's Elbow. It's a tight hairpin that backs on itself, and it can be pretty tricky, especially if it's wet and slidey.
But young adrenaline junkies from Aberdeen or Glasgow using the Applecross Road as an extreme training route are something of a rarity here. Any Highland Scot will tell you that you can experience 4 seasons in one morning here. Snow, rain, fog and sun, and sometimes too much of each.
You drive maybe up about 4 miles, and then conditions can change dramatically.
Driving is part of Kirsten's job, so she has to be well prepared.
I supply all the time. I have my car kitted out with a waterproof jacket, waterproof leggings, blankets. Also for the snow, I have a small folding snow shovel, and also remember drinks, maybe some sweets, something, some Mars bar maybe, that sort of thing, and a good torch, and also I have also got a head torch.
Occasionally, bikers also pitch up here. For them, this single-track road represents a very special challenge.
Well, you just have to watch for the loose gravel and sand in the corners in particular. And there's a lot of humps and bumps as well. It's not a great road from that point of view. 100% concentration. You have to look what you're doing, and you have to look ahead as well to watch for cars coming in the distance and things like that. So, that's the way to do it. Just keep your eye on the road. The
Applecross Peninsula lies on the far west coast of Scotland. Because of its isolated location, until the early 20th century it could only be reached by boat. In the 1920s and 30s, Applecross became a centre of attraction for motorsport enthusiasts. Early motorcycles and racing cars. In the past, true daredevils took part in hair-raising contests on this spectacular but unpaved Highland road. The message on the only sign far and wide is clear and simple. So anyone who doesn't feel confident is wise to take a 60-kilometre detour along the coastal road. On the narrow route from Loch Carron to Applecross, there are hardly any road signs, no traffic lights and no junctions, just breathtaking scenery. The driver of a security van is not interested in taking a detour.
What does make it difficult is people from outside of the area are not used to driving on a road like that. They're not used to single roads, they're not used to passing places.
Anyone who has to use the narrow road frequently experiences a great deal and has lots of tales to tell.
We drive this road to here every week, and possibly the worst thing I remember is at a part of the road which was on a bad hill with no room either side and a cliff face. And car coming opposite didn't know what to do, was stopped, and I couldn't get past him, he couldn't get past me. And I stalled the vehicle in trying to get past him easily. So I had about 5 feet of manoeuvre and had to bump start it in reverse without being able to see properly what I was doing.
On the flat part of the road, the security van can be seen from a long way off, but Terry isn't worried about being attacked.
In an area like this, if someone attacks you, where are they going to go?
You cannot run away with the money.
No. Maybe if they have a helicopter.
With its ever-changing colours, the scenery is spectacular. The few people who live here permanently are a friendly, unflappable breed. Up until 1920, when the road was built, the peninsula could only be reached by ship. Today, the 238 inhabitants of Applecross live from fishing and tourism. Visitors are drawn here by the good whisky, the breathtaking landscape and, of course, by the Applecross Road. These young men from Switzerland and the Netherlands have been to the Highlands many times, so they're familiar with Scotland's roads. They love the beauty and, to a degree, the risks of the Applecross Road.
You have to keep an eye out for oncoming traffic, of course. The roads are fairly narrow with lots of blind bends. You have to be alert. But no, we've never really been warned.
Cool, clear air, a blue sky and sunshine, a day just made for a drive. Even so, the person at the wheel needs strong nerves.
As you start to drive up, you see the signs telling you that the road is not for beginners and is closed in winter. Sliding down the mountain would be just too dangerous. It's not something you want to risk.
Sometimes there's a cliff face on the one side and a chasm on the other, so before setting off it's a good idea to fold in the wing mirrors. Then the beauty of the road and the scenery can both be enjoyed at the same time. But even so, the dangerously tight bends and the steep gradient should not be underestimated.
With a gradient of 20 or 25%, you really need good brakes.
At some dangerous places on the Applecross Road, the car's bodywork comes fairly close to the cliff face, so total concentration is called for. Despite the stunning scenery, the driver needs a firm grip on the wheel. It's not uncommon for tourists to put not just themselves, but also villagers at risk. Some people get out of their car and walk to the next tight bend to see if anything's coming from the opposite direction. Others are so impressed by the natural beauty of the region that they simply pull up and park wherever they feel like. Stopping on a blind bend, getting out and casually strolling along the road is not without its dangers. You might not see a single other vehicle for hours, but that's never something you can rely on. Angus Mackenzie also lives in Loch Carron. The drive to work on the other side of the peninsula takes him a good hour. He's been taking the Applecross Road for years now, and in all weathers. Angus works at the Royal Navy's Torpedo Test Centre. Its location is remote and closely guarded.
But I think for me and for most drivers the worst is a mist, thick fog, heavy rain, mist. You can't see 5, 6 metres, 10 metres, sometimes no metres.
The weather on the Applecross Road can change very quickly. Then mist turns the delightful scenery into an almost ghostly, lonely landscape.
You have to be aware of something maybe around every corner.
But it's not only the weather that can make the road unpredictable.
Animals, very, very dangerous. There have been many accidents over the years. They just wreck your car. But that's the challenge of living in a wilderness place on the west coast.
More than 7,000 accidents involving game have occurred on Scotland's roads, resulting in damage totalling €6.3 million.
I've had a couple of accidents with deer. Once when I was driving, I had 2 call-outs, two sort of consecutive nights. One at 2 in the morning and one at 3 in the morning. And the number of deer that were on the road at that time, really.
A royal stag weighing 100 kilograms or more, herds of deer in search of lush feeding grounds can suddenly cross the road, a nightmare for any motorist.
And they just appear, especially if there's lights coming towards you as well. If traffic is coming towards you, you just don't see them and they just appear in front of you.
They are beautiful animals, but in a car at night it's safer to keep your distance. Up here, anyone involved in a collision with game has more than one problem because there's no cell phone reception.
They can land on your bonnet, really, and go through, antlers can go through the windscreen and really be quite very dangerous.
Because of the weather, the landscape and the wild animals, there are risks that cannot be ruled out. Traffic on the Applecross Road only functions because the region is sparsely populated and the locals drive sensibly. The scenic appeal and the danger posed by the road are evenly balanced. For Kirsten, Angus and the others who live and work here, the Applecross Road is an important and time-saving shortcut. For Chris and all the others who come here because of the scenery and the good whiskey, it's more of a breathtaking spectacle, an extreme road through magnificent nature. Fraser Island lies off the east coast of Australia. Running as straight as a die here is the world's only sand highway. It provides a unique driving experience for more than 100 kilometres. The route is always taxing and sometimes goes straight through surf. There's an 80 km/h speed limit, but it's only from the air that this natural track seems smooth and harmless. This 120-kilometre-long stretch on an island washed by the Pacific Ocean offers adventure for anyone seeking an open road with no tailbacks or traffic lights. Werner Lorca is a photographer and professor at the University of Art and Design in Offenbach, Germany. He's already explored the Australian outback in a four-wheel drive vehicle several times. But what does he, and others, find so appealing about the sand highway?
Even here in Australia, there's no opportunity to do beach work, as the Australians call it. In other words, just let rip over such a long distance. There's nowhere else you can do that in Australia. Apart from the odd danger that might be lurking, it is a very special situation and a unique driving experience.
But anyone who wants to experience the breathtaking kick of driving the 75-mile beach highway will need an off-roader. That's mandatory on Fraser Island. Fraser Magic is a company that rents robust four-wheel drive vehicles to visitors to the world's biggest sand island. Proprietor Matthias Scheller came to Queensland from Switzerland 10 years ago and specialised in renting out 4x4s that were old but still technically sound. Ultimately, his business concept was based on the extreme wear and tear vehicles suffer through seawater, salt and sand, a real market niche.
Ordinary rental firms usually have brand new cars, so naturally they don't want them to be driven on Fraser Island. We have older models that are very strong. We prepare them for the island with higher suspensions, wider tyres and so on. There are no carpets in them, just an engine and transmission. Everything's mechanical. In the long run, that's much better on Fraser Island.
Matt, as the Swiss is known to everyone here, runs a fleet of 20 Land Rovers and Range Rovers. He services and repairs them in his own workshop. The demand for used models of this kind has long been high. Most owners keep hold of their robust off-roaders even if they rarely drive them, but Matt knows exactly where to look. Using a detailed map, Matt explains the special features and risks of the beach highway to all his customers. Drivers with a thirst for adventure also have to watch a 45-minute video which clearly stresses all the different dangers.
You must wear your seatbelt at all times.
One problem is that on sand, young people in particular try to do crazy things like spinning the car, but that doesn't work on sand. It's not like on snow where you can spin a car right round and carry on. On sand, at some point, the wheels will dig in and the vehicle will flip over.
It soon becomes clear why only four-wheel drive vehicles are allowed on Fraser Island. The beach highway isn't all sand. The first 20 kilometres run through rainforest with giant trees. It's a fascinating stretch, rich in variety. Anyone who's just spent the last hour and a half being shaken to and fro is delighted to finally see an almost endless expanse ahead. For Europeans, it's an unaccustomed, exciting motoring experience on a route constantly being changed by the tide. Werner Lorca knows the beach highway well. There are no more than a handful of road signs, and you always have to remember that in Australia, they drive on the left. Motorists on the beach highway are automatically confronted with other vagaries and peculiarities.
Even 80 kilometers an hour can be dangerous if you suddenly drive into soft, wind-blown sand covering what is a corrugated surface. Basically, you have to feel your way, almost like someone steering a boat. You have to notice how the car is reacting and, if necessary, countersteer.
The beach highway certainly has many faces. Local rental firms recommend reducing the tyre pressure a little. This gives the tyres greater contact with the ground and enables the car to cope better with really soft, flour-like sand. Some people drive with only 1 bar of pressure, or even less, in their tyres. Since even that might not be enough, there are always shovels and sand ladders. Basic equipment on every vehicle here, because it's a case of moving the car before the tide comes in.
The moment you turn the wheels too much, you actually start to push the sand in front of you. That's when the car can easily turn over.
In just a few minutes, what started out as a harmless drive on the beach can turn into something totally different. The tide can alter the surface in next to no time. It takes only a few minutes for a 4x4 to sink into the sand and water and become scrap. A vast expanse seemingly limited solely by sand and the sea. Basically, this is a long, straight strip of wet sand. Since it's totally different from what they're used to, this form of motoring appeals to a lot of people, but the beach highway shouldn't be underestimated. And no one should ever drive it on their own, not even in brilliant sunshine.
a lot of tourists can get themselves into trouble, you know, if they get up a bit too much speed, and, you know, especially if they're a bit top heavy. But generally, yeah, the traffic's pretty constant along here. We pull up with the children and stuff, and it's not like you can sit back and relax all the time. You sort of got to watch, just like a normal highway. But yeah, it's a great beach to drive on, like the best I've been on in Australia.
Young people in particular love the casual way you can drive on the beach highway. You quickly learn whether or not you can control a heavy off-roader on sand.
We didn't stuck, but sometimes, you know, the clutch is jump too fast, and then the car is just stuck in the middle of nowhere, and you need to get your all together and you know, to relax, deep breath, and just turn it on and get into it. Yeah, keep going.
The youngsters are thrilled by the blend of freedom and the unique feeling of driving on sand. 4x4 adventures on the beach.
It's a different kind of driving experience. Back home, we nearly always take the motorway or main roads. That's actually become boring, but this is a real experience to take home with us.
Not so long ago, there were no speed restrictions on the beach highway on Fraser Island, with fatal consequences.
Basically, about 7 years ago, people used to just hire the vehicles to overseas paying people. They would bring their vehicles over here by themselves, and they would basically get caught by these booby traps on the beach and roll their vehicles over and yeah, kill people. So basically now the government stepped in and put in the tag-alongs in place. So all the people do still get their driving experience, but they're not in harm's way as they're following a guide or a driver that is highly qualified in driving on these beach and know the beach very well, basically.
Anyone who wants to experience the beach highway without getting behind the wheel themselves can book a ride in one of the 4x4 coaches that show tourists the spectacular places on the world's biggest island. The gentle rocking motion is quite pleasant, and passengers don't have to take any risks. They can experience the island's beauty in air-conditioned comfort. Today, Brock Harris is on a training trip. He explains to the driver what the passengers want, an adventure experience, but under controlled conditions.
Every day it's a little bit of a different challenge. You might have had a creek crossing one day that's beautiful and smooth. Next day it's a big drop off, so you've always been aware. But being up higher in the truck, it does make it a bit easier. But sometimes, some days you're like, wow, the whole beach sometimes on a high tide with a cyclone and the full moon brings it up a lot quicker. You might be driving, you know, for 20 kilometres in water the whole way, remembering from the day before where the nice water crossings were, sort of thing.
Anyone unfamiliar with the beach will run the risk of driving in front of the rocks that lurk beneath the waves when the tide is in. For tourists, the route back from the waterline is fairly strenuous, but it is the safer option.
You get the feeling there's a fairly large hole here, but you can't see down into it. You've got to get out and poke a stick into it to make sure that there are no nasty surprises lurking.
The 70-mile beach highway at 6 in the morning. This isn't an elk test, nor is Paul driving his 4x4 Mitsubishi after having had a drink or two. He's weaving to and fro to check the surface. It's a ground inspection he does every morning. If he's happy with the surface, he hammers in metal struts and sets up his markers. The runway for his company's aircraft is now ready, in the middle of the highway. In the early morning, takeoffs and landings are no problem, but after sunrise, motorists and pilots use the track together.
Yeah, people who don't know we're operating here, they can be a problem sometimes. as they don't really see the plane when we're coming into land. So there's a hazard there and we need to go around occasionally. Usually it doesn't happen. Yeah, I've seen some funny reactions, yeah, cars swerving off and people, oh, you know, not everyone, but yeah, a couple do hit a wave, yeah.
Cars on the highway are stopped when a plane is about to take off or land. Tourists often book a 20-minute flight over the island at a cost of €60. Seeing it from above is a change from the usual perspective. Pilots know the view, but they still have to reassess the dangers every day.
Firstly, the beach always changes. So a lot of the times it's different in the morning than it was the previous afternoon. So we're faced with a lot of mounds that form in the middle of the evening. There's also washouts, so the freshwater creeks run out in the evening and they can make lips on the creeks there. That's very dangerous. That can shear off the landing gear for us. And also there's a lot of, we like to call them melon holes. So it's potholes really, but they're in very close proximity to each other. And that can be very dangerous as well, especially for the tires. But the cars also, yeah, you don't want to hit that with a car.
The beach highway has to be shared by all who use it. The local pilots with visitors in off-road vehicles, cyclists with anglers and walkers. To be on the safe side, some drivers get out when they reach one of the freshwater creeks and first check the depth of the water on foot and look for the right place to cross before proceeding. Others prefer to take the direct route and stay at the wheel because anyone leaving their car here should be very careful and be on the lookout for dingoes. Australia's wild dogs live on and alongside the highway. They're an attraction but at the same time a threat. In 2001, dingoes on Fraser Island killed a 9-year-old boy and injured another youth. Since then, signs warn visitors never to feed the animals and certainly not to try stroking them. Nor should they run away, because that arouses the hunting instinct of the 160 or so dingoes that live on Fraser Island. The wild dogs can be seen easily and safely from inside a vehicle. The 120-kilometre-long drive on sand from the south end of the island to this cliff is a trip full of surprises. The beach highway along the east coast of Fraser Island ends here at Indian Head. The route continues to be a major attraction for thousands who are tired of always driving on asphalt. The 75-mile-long beach highway might not be the most dangerous road in the world, but it certainly is one of the wackiest. Whether we're talking about the Applecross Road in Scotland, the Skipper's Canyon Road in New Zealand or the world's only beach highway in Australia, extreme routes make great demands on drivers and travellers. But their location, the conditions they present and their history spell far more than just a way of getting from A to B. Whoever drives them will find adventure and a bit of freedom set against the magnificent backdrop of nature.